Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show, all social media, thatkevinshow@gmail.com if you want to drop me a good old-fashioned email. My next guest is someone who knows a little bit about the old-fashioned ways, and he fights for some of the common sense of those old-fashioned days as he is battling culture wars, but also talking about things like immigration and other items for the Heritage Foundation. Mike Gonzales, welcome back to That Kevin Show.
It's fantastic to be on with you again, Kevin.
We appreciate it. Just this last week, you were testifying before Congress in light of some of the DOGE commitments that have been handed out over the years. You were part of the team that talked about whether or not American taxpayers should still be funding National Public Radio and the public broadcasting system. I've had an opinion about this for a long time. If you don't represent what the nation represents, you shouldn't be being funded by the nation. People in Washington have felt differently for a long time. Why is that?
Well, that is putting it very succinctly. They refuse to give any respect to the half of the country, or the more than half of the country that is conservative. They don't air our views. They deride us. They ignore us at best, and then they turn around and dictate to us and say to us, "But you must pony up. You must pay. Give us $500 million, even more than $500 million a year. Take money from your families and give it to us." Even though we're going to denigrate your views and tip the scales in favor of your opponents. And yes, I testified saying very resolutely that no, we should not continue to have state media. The idea, I'm a journalist, I think I'm not a journalist anymore, but I used to be a journalist for many
Well, you still write
years.
a column. Columns,
Yeah.
Commentary is journalism. It's just a different.
Right, I have a weekly column at the Washington Examiner. But I was a foreign correspondent. I traveled with the Mujahideen. I was arrested in Panama. I was there when China took over Hong Kong. I covered the introduction of the euro in Brussels. I know that a reporter can keep his biases in check, and that's not what NPR and PBS do. But I tell you that even though I was there, I testified. Congressman asked me questions. I was the only one who was asked questions about his written testimony. I was by no means, and I mean this in all sincerity, the star of the show. NPR CEO Catherine Marr self-immolated, and I think her disastrous appearance in front of the DOJ subcommittee will mean that this time they really do get defunded.
Well, there's reasons why that I feel like should be happening, but I've also noticed with great irony that particularly PBS changes its tune every time that they have the fundraisers going. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, you've got like Les Miserables, again being shown for the 50th time. If this is the kind of programming you appreciate, then send your money to. But I'm like, why do they get both? Why are they allowed to ask for money and also demand it from the taxpayers? It seems like it's just two sides of the same coin that they're trying to steal.
Well, they have a membership model that works. I think their membership model will help them succeed.
Not enough to do what they want to do, evidently, because they come asking $500 million from us.
Well, I think that what will happen is that people like Mackenzie Scott and George Soros and the Tides Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the list of the cast of characters who come in and pony up and give them the money. That means people say to me, "Well, Mike, what that means is that they're going to fall even more into the hands of George Soros and in the very progressive wing." And my answer is, I don't care. I really don't care. George Soros is an American. I don't like what he does at all, but he can do with his money what he wants. Mackenzie Scott can do with her money what she wants. And she wants to give that money to NPR. That's fine. And I don't care that you have a liberal voice. I'm not like Catherine Marr. I don't want to extinguish, views with which I disagree.
Side. Yeah.
I don't care that the New York Times exists. The New York Times is actually run by a guy who used to be my friend. But he probably would, if he saw me coming down the street, he would go into a store to avoid me now. I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't. But I don't care that MSNBC exists. I just care deeply that this injustice of taxpayer support for NPR and PBS exists. And I don't understand why everybody is not as incensed as I am.
Well, here's what and I think a lot of this is just ignorance on some level, Mike. People don't understand. They think that NPR and PBS are funded through primarily donations. But to your point, it was interesting. A number of years ago, there was a lot of complaint about Rush Limbaugh having too much influence, and something had to be done about limiting the amount of influence that Rush Limbaugh had on the talk radio airwaves. And so a bunch of people got together and said, let's start Air America. And Rachel Maddow was part of the lineup of Air America. And that thing lasted about 14 months, I think, in its healthiest version, and then it started having to reduce and go away. And the reason that they did, it wasn't because anybody tried to take them off the air or prevent them from espousing their views. They just simply found no audience for what they were trying to force feed to the American people. And they tried to make the argument that it was that Rush in some way had so much influence on people. He was brainwashing them into denying their natural liberal instincts. And so even a product that they almost wanted to argue that they needed to be subsidized because the influence of this one conservative was so powerful. No, the truth is, in a free market, and in a free market of ideas, the best ideas float to the top, and the best ideas survive, and the best ideas continue to thrive beyond what people would like them to sometimes. And I think the same model needs to be applied to what we're talking about here. If PBS and NPR can go find big, deep pockets to keep them on the air, and there's an audience for it, then they'll be fine. And if they can't, then maybe they don't need to be there because they're not meeting the needs of the people that they think exist.
Yeah, and that's really it. You know, it's amazing to me that people on the left are now complaining, shrieking about the fact that conservatives, through, as you said, through the free market, have been able to claw back a presence online, have, the podcasts, the manosphere, all these things that are now increasingly giving, airing conservative views. I don't think, to be honest, that Trump would have been elected in last year in 2024 if Elon Musk had not bought Twitter and freed Twitter to all views, ugly views, good views, beautiful views, bad views, and let the truth rise, which is what is happening before our very eyes on X.
Yeah,
there are people saying things on X that I deeply disagree with, and some are disgusting. But they have a right to be there, and they have the right to compete with my views.
and at the end of the day, the best ideas rise to the surface and everything else floats away. So there's no risk in free speech. There's no risk in free expression. Let people say what they want to say. We are all smart adults, and we know how to listen and choose and discern for ourselves.
Well, we don't have to.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.